Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Pesachim Daf Tezayin continues the Gemara's discussion of the laws of Tumah, and this Daf is focused completely on the halachos of liquids. The 7 liquids, Yad, Shachat, Dam. Primarily we'll be focusing on water and blood. And our question is, what level of Tumah do these liquids have d'oraisa? The Rabbanan, we know they have a very high level, but mid'oraisa, what level of tumah do they have? There is a pasuk which says that they do have tumah. The question is how you read it precisely, and there are different versions of understanding it. The Gemara's primary discussion will be, can they transmit tumah to something else? Almost everybody agrees that they can become tamei. We'll see one exception, but they can become tamei. The question is, can they transmit tumah to something else? 2 additional levels which we shall discuss is, are they machshir tumah? Do they prepare another food to become tamei, and can they actually work as a mikvah and take tumah off? So our first discussion is mid'oraisa. On a d'oraisa level, can liquids that are tamei transmit tumah to something else? So we quote a brisa that has 5 tanaim in it, but only 3 opinions. And the brisa says as follows: liquids definitely become tamei d'oraisa. Their own tumah is a question of a d'oraisa. If you have a suffix, if a liquid is tamei or not, you have to go l'chumra and rishos hayachid. You have to assume that it's tamei. Question is about liquids that are definitely tamei transmitting tumah to something else. You have a liquid that potentially splashed on some piece of food. You're not sure if it made it tamei or not, if it touched it or not. What is the halacha? Or is it a d'oraisa question and you have to go l'chumra or not? So the Gemara says that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar say it is tahor. Mid'oraisa, it's tahor. Liquids cannot transmit a tumah. Rabbi Yehuda says it's tamei, it does transmit tumah. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say the split halacha depends to what? To foods, it does transmit tumah. To kalim, devices, it does not transmit tumah. Okay, those are the 3 opinions. Yes, no, and depends on whether it's food or kalim. The Gemara is going to focus now on the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar had agreed with Rabbi Meir's statement that there is a tumah d'oraisa on the liquids itself, but not it is not able to transmit it to other things. The Gemara is going to say, is this really true that Rabbi Elazar holds that the liquids become tamei themselves d'oraisa? And here we're going to bring in a statement of Rabbi Elazar together with Rabbi Yossi ben Ye'ezer ish tzreida, and he says the following things. He says there are 2 things that are tahar. He says there's a type of grasshopper called ayil kamtza. That is a kosher grasshopper. It's tahar. And the other thing that he says is a tahar is liquids that are in the slaughtering areas of the Beis HaMikdash. There's a lot of water there, there's a lot of blood there, those are 2 mashkin. It says that they are tahar in the Beis HaMikdash. Now in the Beis HaMikdash, generally we're going to take off the derabbanans. We want to keep things as tahar as we can, so we'll take the derabbanans off. So if we're saying that they are tahar in the Beis HaMikdash, Yossi ben Ye'ezer's chiddush over here is that the tumah of these liquids themselves, again, themselves becoming tamei, is only d'Rabbanan, and therefore, in the Beis HaMikdash slaughtering area, what we call the Beis HaMitbachaya, it will not have tumah at all. So that's the statement of Rabbi Elazar and Yossi ben Ye'ezer. And the question is, how do we interpret the statement? They said that it's tahar. They said that these liquids are tahar. So machlokes Rav and Shmuel, what they mean when they say that liquids are tahar. Definitely everybody agrees that these liquids cannot be mitamei, that they cannot transmit tumah to something else. Now, that jives perfectly with what Rabbi Elazar said in our brisa that we brought earlier, that they cannot transmit tumah to something else. Mid'oraisa, that would be why in the Beis HaMikdash, where there's no drabbanans, they can't transmit the tumah to something else. The Chokes Rav and Shmuel is, what did Rabbi Yossi ben Ye'ezer and Rabbi Elazar mean about the mashkin themselves? I explained it earlier that they clearly said that it was tahar, but that's a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav says that it's tahar, and Shmuel says that they're actually saying that that's tamei. So now, according to Rav, we have a problem, because Rabbi Elazar here is saying that these liquids are tahar, but Rabbi Elazar in our brisa was together with Rabbi Meir, who said that these liquids are actually tamei d'oraisa. So Shmuel is good. Rav we have a problem with. So that is the Gemara's kashan Rav. So the Gemara first wants to answer that, okay, when Rabbi Elazar agreed with Rabbi Meir, he was only agreeing with him on one of his halachos, that these liquids are tahar d'oraisa, that they can't be matami. Others, that's what he was agreeing with. That they themselves are tamei, he wasn't agreeing with. That's what Rav will say. He was disagreeing on that point. He holds that they're tahar. The Gemara says that can't be, because first of all, he said v'chein amar Rabbi Elazar. He says the same thing. That implies it's all the same. Also, his phrase was that he says kidvarov, like his words, plural. That means he agrees with all of his words, not just one of them. So Gemara leaves this as a kasha, and the Gemara does not explore it further. The Gemara now, though, goes into this machlokes Rav and Shmuel, and the Gemara brings quite a few proofs to Shmuel and one proof against Shmuel about the topic of their machlokes. Again, let's review what is their machlokes. Rav and Shmuel are arguing the statement of Rabbi Yosi ben Ye'ezer and Rabbi Elazar, who said that the liquids in the Beis HaMikdash are tahor. That means that they only have tumah midrabanan, and tumah midrabanan doesn't apply in the Beis HaMikdash. What were they? They were for sure saying that they can't be matami others. Do they have tumah themselves? Is there such a thing as tamei liquids in the Beis HaMikdash? Is there such a thing as tamei liquids d'oraisa? Shmuel says yes, there are. Rav says no, there are not. Anywhere where you'll show me that there are tamei liquids d'oraisa or in the Beis HaMikdash, you'll be bringing a clear proof to Shmuel. So the Gemara first of all brings a proof against Shmuel. The Gemara says, there's a pasuk that says, "V'habasar asher yiga b'chol tamei lo ye'ochel." It clearly says that anything which touches tamei cannot be eaten. That clearly indicates that anything which touches tamei becomes tamei itself. That would seem to apply even if it touches tamei liquids. It should become tamei itself. That shows that even tamei liquids, as long as liquids are tamei, transmit tumah to something else, and they should also be tamei. According to Shmuel, this is problematic. Shmuel holds that liquids are tamei in the Beis HaMikdash, but they cannot transmit tumah further. Now, according to Rav, it's not a problem. Liquids are never tamei, and liquids, therefore, you wouldn't say that they should transmit it further. But here, according to Shmuel, you have liquids which are tamei but don't transmit it further. But this pasuk says that anything which touches something tamei becomes tamei itself. That means that anything which is tamei transmits tumah further, even liquids. So Gemara says not necessarily. This pasuk tells you that anything which is tamei transmits tumah further. That's only referring to things which are actually tamei enough to transmit tumah further. There are some things that don't transmit tumah further. The pasuk was not referring to that. The pasuk was referring to things which can transmit. And I'll prove to you that there is such a thing as something which is tamei that doesn't transmit further, and that is a revi'i b'kodesh. The halacha is something which is a fourth level of tumah. It got tumah from something, which got tumah from something, which got tumah from something, which got tumah from something else. 4 levels. That kind of thing can become tamei if it is kudshim, if it's carbon meat, but it cannot transmit tumah further. So it's the same thing. So Gemara says, no, not so fast. Something which is 4th level tumah is not called tamei. It's called a puzzle. This pasuk is talking about a tamei. The words, when we say tamei, that means something which can transmit tumah further. If liquids are called a tamei, then they should be able to transmit tumah further. You can't tell me that 4th level tumah also is not able to transmit tumah further, so you see such a concept exists. It's not true. That we don't label as tamei, that we call puzzle. And therefore this shouldn't work. The Gemara leaves it as a kasha. The Gemara doesn't answer it. But the Gemara does proceed to ask a number of questions against Rav. Again, Rav's position was that liquids themselves are not tamei in the Beis HaMikdash, where there's only tumah d'oraisa. That means these liquids only have on themselves tumah d'rabbanan. So the Gemara quotes a pasuk chol mashka asher yishaseh b'chol kli yitma. You see, it says in the pasuk openly that liquids become tamei. Liquids which are found in a tamei kli, the liquids themselves are tamei. So Gemara says, you see, d'oraisa, the liquids do become tamei. So Gemara says, no, here where it says tamei, it doesn't mean that it becomes actually tamei. It means that it's able to be machshir tumah. That means it's able to qualify to make other foods wet, to do hechsher tumah, that now they are susceptible to tumah. In this case here, you had liquids together with fruits in a tamei kli. The liquids don't become tamei, but they do make the fruits wet. And once the fruits are wet, they are hechsher tumah. They're ready to be makal tumah. And because they're in a tamei kli, they become tamei right there on the spot, simultaneously. So Gemara says, well, why would I need you to tell me that halacha? That halacha says earlier in the pasuk itself. The pasuk which we are discussing starts off and says, The pasuk says, Asher yavei olav mayim yitma. It says that water touches it, then it can become tamei. So we see that liquids are machshir for tumah. Why would I need the second half of the pasuk to repeat that and tell me they're tamei? And it doesn't really mean tamei. It means that it's machshir for tumah. Tell me the same halacha twice. Gemara says, I do need the same halacha twice. One is talking about water which is connected to the ground, meaning it's part of a body of water set in the ground. And one is talking about where water is not in the ground, where water is in a kli. I need you to tell me that both of those can be machshir for tumah, can create a preparation of tumah on an object. Why do I need to tell me both of those? Well, the Water which is in the ground is more chashuv than water which is in a kli, and I may think you need chashuv water to be machshir for tumah. Therefore, you got to tell me that water in a kli is also machshir. And on the other hand, the water that's in the kli you put there; it didn't come there on its own. And the halacha is that your intent that water be where it is a very big part of it being machshir for tumah, and therefore you may think only water which is in a kli counts. Water which is not in a kli does not count. Gemara says, hold on a second, are you so sure that water that's in a kli can be machshir things, prepare them to be makabel tumah? We have a clear limud that says that the liquids in the Beis Mitbachai and the slaughtering house of the Beis HaMikdash are not machshir to be makabel tumah. Why? Obviously because they're detached from the ground, they're on the stone floor, or they're in a kli. So Gemara says, no, that's different. That's not even talking about water. That's talking about the blood of the karbonos that are slaughtered. The halacha is that blood of karbonos are never machshir for tumah. And the reason is that we connect blood to water. Water that's machshir for tumah. Water is machshir for tumah. The only type of blood that's machshir for tumah is blood which is similar to water in the sense that it is poured freely on the ground. It's not saved for anything. Just like water goes to waste on the ground, blood which goes to waste on the ground is also machshir for tumah. Blood of karbonos doesn't go to waste on the ground. Blood of karbonos goes on the mizbeach. You sprinkle it on the mizbeach. Therefore, that does not count for tumah. That is removed from this halacha of counting for tumah, and that's what the Brisa was referring to. It wasn't talking about water which is in a kli. So Gemara says, wait a second, you're telling me that the blood in the Beis HaMikdash is not machshir for tumah because it's not like water has to go on the mizbeach, but what about other blood in the Beis HaMikdash? The only blood that goes on the mizbeach is the first squirt of blood which takes out the life force of the animal. Blood which comes out later, slowly, that seeps out, called dam tamsis, that doesn't go on the mizbeach, that is poured on the ground on the floor, and therefore that should be machshir for tumah. We know the halacha is, though, that it's not machshir for tumah. So why not? Obviously the reason has nothing to do with the fact that it needs to go on the mizbeach. Gemara says, no. Blood which comes out, seeps out later, doesn't have the halacha of blood at all. Even if it wouldn't be from a carbon, even if you just regularly slaughtering an animal, that blood doesn't count as blood. We have a limud that says, only blood which has the life force of the animal in it counts as blood. Anything else doesn't count as blood as far as this halacha at all. Okay, now the Gemara has more proofs. We skipped one, we'll go back to one. The Gemara's proof is again against Rav. The pasuk says, "Ach mayan bar mikveh mayim yeh tahar." A well of water and a collection of water in a pool, these things are tahar. That implies that other water is tamei. That doesn't fit with Rav, who said that water is not tamei da'iraisa. Water is always tahar da'iraisa. Where it says, no, this is different. Here when it says tamei, here when it says it's tahar, it's not telling me that it's tahar and everything else is tamei. When it says it's tahar, it's telling me that it's a mikvah that can take tumah off things. That's a special halacha of a mayan or bar mikveh mayim. Regular water, it doesn't impart tahara on other things, but that's not to say that it is tamei itself. Wouldn't go that far. That's not what it means to say. Okay, the next two proofs are very similar. They are both brises which show that there is such a concept as tamei blood. One talks about the halacha of tamei blood which was used to go on the mizbeach and not supposed to. So the Gemara says if you put it on the mizbeach of a shogeg, you didn't realize, then the tzitz that the kohen gadol is wearing takes off the avera of putting tamei blood, and it counts the carbon as a good carbon. If it's done on purpose, though, then it doesn't count. The other one tells me the halacha that the tzitz also takes off the avera of blood, meat, and chaylev, which is tamei, whether rishogeg mezid, whether ba'inus of ratzain, whether for an individual carbon or a group carbon. Rashi deals with the contradiction between blood, b'shoigig and b'mezid. Here it says b'mezid is okay. Before it said b'mezid is not okay. Rashi works on that contradiction. But in all these brises we see the halacha, there is a concept of tamei blood. How could you have tamei blood? According to Rav, there is no tamei blood. So Gemara says Rav was only explaining Yosef ben Yoezer's opinion. There is a Tanna which argues on Yosef ben Yoezer. Yosef ben Yoezer had said that if it only has tumah, that if there is no tumah d'oraisa, it only has tumah d'Rabbanan, so in the Beis HaMikdash that comes off. This Tana argues on that. This Tana says that there is Tumah Dirabanan even in the Beis Hamikdash. That's why he's saying here there is Tumah Dirabanan. However, Tumah D'Oraisa, you will not find liquids Tumah D'Oraisa, and he doesn't argue on Yosef ben Yozer on that, and Rav is going to say that this, of course, agrees with that there is no such thing as Tumah D'Oraisa on liquids. This Tana happens to hold, like we said, Tumah D'Rabbanan exists, and he disagrees with Yosef ben Yozer, and he says therefore that exists in the Beis Hamikdash as well. The Gemara's next raya is also from the concept of the tzitz taking off the avera of Tumah. It's a pasuk that talks about Aaron wearing the tzitz that takes off the avera. It doesn't say which avera. It says Vanas Aaron esavain hakodshim, and Aaron takes off the avera of the karbanos. Doesn't say which one. So the Gemara asks, which avera is he taking off? If it's the avera of pigol, that is taking off the psol on meat which was slaughtered, or some of the avodas were performed with the wrong intention, but that you can't take that off. It says lo yeratze, you can't take that avera off. If it's talking about the avera of noiser, which is meat that is left over past the time, you can improve that meat. That meat is finished. When we say avera here, we don't mean the avera of the person who did it, we mean the negative status of the meat itself. So the only thing that's left is it must be talking about tumah, the avera of tumah, the psal status of tumah, and it's logical that that's what it's referring to, because we see tumah can be taken off. Tumah is taken off a public carbon, a public device. Tumah is removed if it's the need of the public. So tumah can be taken off by the tzitz. Now, what tumah are we taking off? So the Gemara assumes that it's the tumah of the key essential ingredient of the carbon, the part of the carbon which actually completes the carbon, makes it a proper carbon, and that's the blood which goes in the mizbeach. So there you see that there is tumah on blood, and here it's referring to a pasuk d'oraisa, so you can't tell me that this is midrabanan. So the Gemara answers, no, we're not talking about the tumah, we're talking about actually carbon mincha, and the equivalent of blood in the carbon mincha is the kaimitz, the part of the flour that you take off from the carbon mincha that goes in the mizbeach. That's the equivalent, and therefore that's what we're referring to when we say that it can be tamei. But really, blood cannot be tamei, like Rav would say. Okay, now the Gemara goes to a pasuk in Navi, in Sefer Chagai. Chagai HaNavi was testing Kehanim when they came back to Eretz Yisrael from the exile. They hadn't been dealing with Tumah and Tahara and Karbonos and Kachim for a long time, so he wanted to test them, see if they still knew the halachos. So he asked them, the pasuk says, he asked them what happens if something tamei touches a food, which touches wine, which touches liquid, which touches wine, which touches oil, and then it touches Kachim, it touches carbon meat. And the Kehanim said, it's fine, it's not tahar. And Rav said on that, the Kehanim made a mistake. You see, they didn't know the halacha. This is talking about revi'i for kachim, fourth level tumah and karbanos, does become tamei. So now the Gemara says, well, you had wine and oil there in the middle. And Rav says that wine and oil is not able to be tamei. So how could wine and oil transmit tamei here if it doesn't become tamei at all? So Gemara says, 1 second. We were discussing Rav all along here. Rav says it about blood and water. It doesn't say it about oil and wine. Oil and wine can transmit tumah. Rav was only talking about blood and water, that it cannot become tumah or transmit tumah midaraisa, and therefore Rav makes sense here, and we don't have a kasha on Rav.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.